¿Otra vez?
Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing today? We'll go ahead and hang out for a minute, see if anyone pops in the chat before we get going. Let's see, we have one person watching, but see if they decide to say hi. How's everyone's week been? I know down here it has been cold. What is awkward for Georgia? Typically, we are far warmer than we've been. It's been in the 20s and 30s, what is extremely cold. And back last week, we ended up with some snow. What was amusing being a New Englander in the South because the entire state shut down. It was awkward. We didn't leave our house for 3 or 4 days. My sister Jean, what's up? Welcome. Glad you're able to make it. My brother Larry, how you doing? Good to see you. I know you got a lot more snow up there than we did down here. We ended up with about 2 inches of sleet and an inch powder on top of it. And yet it still shut down school for the whole week, and most restaurants are still trying to recoup. Yeah, I know. It's funny, Larry. It is funny. Anyone else lurking in there today? Yeah, no, Gene, I thank you for sharing the cold. I wish you hadn't of. I would have much preferred y'all kept it up there. I'm really, really happy with my 50 degrees that we had today, and it's supposed to be up in the 70s by next week. So, can't wait for that to come back. Nothing there, a little bit not bad. Well, I'm glad you guys are having a more mild winter. I heard it was real cold. Jared, man, I haven't seen you in forever. How you doing? Anyways, we'll get rolling. Welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. If you were able to catch last week, either live or on Restream, and if you do want to check it out, you can find the link on our website. I'm trying to find the clicker. I apologize. I'm still trying to learn this system. Where are you at? There we go. You can go here. Yeah, no, but if you want warmer weather, Jared moved down here. So this is the website. You can find all of our blog posts there, and you can find links to the YouTube page where you can watch the podcast back. So last week we were talking about salt and what it means to be salt, the purpose of salt, and what exactly that means for us living. And going off of Matthew 5, we're going to finish out the verse and we're going to talk about light. What does it mean to be light? What does that look like in our everyday life? What does that look like as a Christian in the church trying to survive today? What is our purpose with it? And what was the meaning on being light? So tonight we talk about light. I do apologize for any lagging if you guys have seen it on this end, but something's up with the internet and it's moving slow, but we're going to take it from here and go as best we can. So, light. What is light? What does it do? We looked at the properties of salt. Let's look at the properties of light. First, light illuminates. It shines in the dark place. It heeds warning. And often when this verse is spoken on, they use the example of we're supposed to be the light to the world. We're supposed to shine on the darkness, give way where others may not be able to see. Now, going off of that, I want to pose a question. Imagine a lighthouse sitting on the beach. What does the lighthouse do for the boats in the harbor? It sets up light. It heeds warning. It lets the boats coming in know that there's rocks and you need to find another way. Take this safe route. What a lot of Christians don't realize is the lighthouse is a fixed building. There is nothing physically that the lighthouse can do to stop boats from running into the rocks. And often we feel as Christians, if we shine the light harder and we beat the boat over the head with the light, that we'll be able to stop it. But that's not what we're called to do. We're called to show the way. We're supposed to stand steadfast and give example. But you can't force a boat to move if it doesn't want to. Another thing that light does is it warms. It gives comfort. When this sermon was given, you have to remember, as Jesus was giving it to the disciples, they didn't have LED lights. They didn't have electricity. They couldn't just go flip a switch and get light. All the light that they knew came from one of two places. Either came from a flame or the sun. So to them, to be light would have automatically meant warmth, comfort. Now, how exactly do we use our light to give comfort? It's great to be able to help someone out that's struggling, someone who's in a dark place, and be able to shine some light on it. But let me ask you this. If you're walking in the woods with a friend and they're walking ahead of you and they have a flashlight and they're lighting their path and they see that you're in a dark place and they keep waving their light, saying, wow, this light is really helpful. You should really get this light. What good does that do to them? It doesn't. It's so much more impactful if you share your light. Now, we can't just hand over our light. It's not ours to give. But we can share our light, what in turn is the love of Christ, by sharing his love through us by being his hands and feet. We can give comfort that way. We can give the warmth of light by showing them the same love and compassion that we're shown. Now, here's where it gets fun. Last week, we discussed about how salt was used as a fertilizer. Well, another thing that light does that a lot of people tend to look over is light makes food. The plants that grow take light in, and through that light, it pulls the nutrients out of the well-fertilized soil. to make food for the plant so it can grow. Now, look at that through the lens of the first part of this verse, where we're supposed to be the salt of the earth that is supposed to fertilize the ground. So not only are we supposed to help make sure the ground has plenty of nutrients, so that way, hey, nerd, I apologize. My sister just entered the chat, and she's late. For shame. So salt. Salt is a fertilizer that puts nutrients into the ground. We're also supposed to be the light that filters through that soil and helps it work through the plant. It helps the nutrients that we put down for others be able to be filtered and processed. Now that sounds like a concept that sadly in the church we talk about a lot, but we don't actually do very well. When you look at Matthew 5, 13 through 16 as a whole, we're supposed to be speaking into each other's lives. We're supposed to be seasoning their life, helping them, giving them good soil to be planted in, helping be that soil. And then we're supposed to be the light that helps that soil be turned into good food to help them grow into a strong believer. That sounds a lot like discipleship. And how often do we talk about discipleship, but we miss it? Discipleship at its core is hospitality. It is looking to someone who is in need of something. Hi, Debbie. Thank you for checking in before you go to bed. I hope if you can't watch it live, you catch it on the restream. We're supposed to walk with these people and say, watch me, do life with me. Look what I have. We shouldn't say, look what we have and say, you should get it too. We should say, look what I have. Let me show you where I got it and how you can have it as well. Let me help you get it. Let me help you learn how to use it. Let me help you learn how to use it so you can use it better than I and teach someone else to. Discipleship fundamentally is the pinnacle of true hospitality. If you look at Acts, we were actually, it's amusing when you get confirmation from God, right? I was already working on this. We had a guest speaker at church on Sunday that came in, and his sermon was about Acts 10, right after Pentecost, when the disciples ran out into the street and they were speaking in tongues and speaking in languages that they didn't know. And they built the church by, now his math was a little off. He said they built church, they went from 13 to, 3,013. What's about 224%. Not quite true. It was the church gained 3,000 men. What meant they gained 3,000 men plus any wives and children. So the number was probably far closer to 10 to 12,000 people that were now believers. Now, here's the great thing about that sermon and how that discipleship started. Because it says after they heard the sermon, They broke bread together. They prayed together. They came under the disciples and they learned from them. They did life together. Do you know what got those 3,000 people in? Peter didn't stand up on that busy street and say, "You must repent from your sins now. You must change your entire worldview. You must stop doing what you have been doing right now." No. He said, "Let me tell you about a man that I know. All he did was preach Christ." He preached Christ and he said, "Come learn about it with me." And then they did life together. They took on more disciples and they lived life together. Now, here's my question. And I hope if you're in the chat, please engage. I would talk to my wife, but she's interpreting for the deaf, and I hate doing this alone. Why don't we do that in the church today? Why are we so unwilling to make ourselves available to disciple others? Why aren't we willing to welcome them in to our lives and our homes and say, "Hey, we love you the way you are. We may disagree, but we love you the way you are," because we're called to love the sinner, not the sin. We don't have to condone it. We don't have to agree with them, but we still have to love them and love on them. And then let Jesus do his job. There is not a Christian in this world that has actually transformed anyone. Christ has done the work 10 out of 10 times. Because we're broken people. We can't do it alone. So why don't we? I would say I personally see two main reasons why we don't. Firstly, we don't want to. Discipleship means we have to be vulnerable. We have to open up our lives. We have to be raw and real. We have to allow people to look into our lives, what means they are going to see the good and the bad. Just like hospitality, you open up your home, someone may pop over and your house may be a mess. It's okay. You live there, just like they live in their house. Being vulnerable means that you have to be real with other people. You have to be real with yourself. And as Christians, we don't want to do that. We go to church every Sunday. I tithe. I gave to missions last year. But you have to let everyone know you. And you have to be walking with Christ to be able to bring each other over. What means you have to be putting in the work. And we're afraid to be vulnerable. We're afraid to be judged. And that's why we keep everyone at arm's length. That's why we see each other on a Sunday morning and we give them a half a nod. And then that's it. We go away until the next week. Second reason, the few that may be willing to allow people into their lives if they go to church with them. Far often than not, we gatekeep the gospel. I know many have spoken about this. I know Robin did a podcast on it a couple months ago. But we demand that people get clean before they come to church. I've never once seeing someone get in shape before they go to the gym or get healthy before they go to the hospital? Why do we demand that the sinner gets healthy, gets clean, gets purified before they come to know Christ? Before we're willing to show them, take them by the hand and show them Christ through our lives. It's a sad state that so few are willing to do this. Yeah, that's right, Robin. You always clean up before you take a bath. Of course. I mean, that makes sense. When I was preparing for this, it reminded me of a story. Some of you may know of this person, some of you may not. Originally, for those of you in Georgia that are watching, as you know, I'm from New England, born and raised. There's a small town just south of where I grew up called Greenfield, Mass. We have a celebrity that grew up there. Some of you may know him, some of you may not. His name is Penn Jillette. He's a very famous magician, Penn and Teller. They've been around since mid-'80s. One thing about Penn, he's a great magician, and he's also a staunch atheist. He makes it very clear that anyone who believes in any form of higher power is a fool. I was watching an interview with him one day, and he was telling a story. He said he got done with his show at one point, and a man walked up to him and handed him a Bible. Just a Gideon Bible like you would find in a hotel. And on the inside of it, he took a Sharpie and wrote his telephone number, and he just handed it to Penn and said, "If you ever have any questions, give me a call. I would love to talk about it with you." And that was it. And when he was asked about the interaction and if he was offended as an atheist that someone would walk up to him and offer him a Bible and question his beliefs, he said, "No, actually, it brought me to tears." Yes, Amanda, you're right. It is very hard to be humble. That's where we need to remember it's the least of these that will inherit the kingdom. Anyways, he broke down crying. He said that man who gave him the Bible was the first time that anyone had truly shared their faith with him. Many people had come before and argued about why he shouldn't be an atheist, but no one ever just offered him a way. And he said, how much do you have to hate someone? How much of a word I won't sound here do you have to be that you would fully believe to your core that this man's soul is damned to hell and not say anything? Would you walk past someone's house that's on fire and see them dancing in the kitchen and not warn them? So here's my question. How much do we hate our unsaved brothers and sisters that we won't take the time to open up our lives and allow someone to peer in so that way they can come to the realization that their house is on fire? Just like the lighthouse, we can't run into the fire. We can't pull them out. They have to walk out on their own. But most modern Christians will see people with their house burning to the ground and be disgusted at the fact that their house is burning to the ground. Ugh, can you believe they allowed that to happen? I wouldn't be caught dead associating with that person. How much love are we actually showing in that moment? Now, here's my question. Yes, it is a very vulnerable place, but we have to be there. Think it in this terms. Would you have a cup of coffee with someone if you knew it could save their life? I know a lot of you who are watching are thinking in the back of your head, well, that's a ridiculous question. Of course I would. Is it ridiculous? Why, if it's ridiculous, why don't you? Why don't you have that cup of coffee with the recovering addict that showed up at your church? Why don't you ask the guy that his wife had just left him because he was caught cheating to go on a fishing trip? Because you're a sinner? The one thing that we have to get as a whole, before we can actually show hospitality like we're called to do, is we do have to realize that it's a vulnerable place that we have to come in to. You may have people come over and see your dirty dishes, see a pile of laundry on the couch. I'm telling you right now, if someone is in need of hospitality, they do not care. In all honesty, it may be a sigh of relief that they know that you're willing to be vulnerable and see that your house is a mess as well. What's important about that is that we all show them that we are cleaning up our house. You can't invite them in and just the two of you have dirty houses together. Invite them in. Show them your new cleaning technique. Offer to help them pick up their house. But before you can do that, you have to invite them in. You have to be salt. You have to fertilize the ground. One thing that I should have touched on last week, they didn't just sprinkle the salt on the ground. It had to get mixed in with the dirt to do any good. If you just dump it on top, it would smother the roots. You have to mix in the dirt. You have to get dirty. The light can't hang around the plant to make food. The light has to touch the leaves. It has to penetrate through it and dive in and grab that water and pull it out to help the plant make food. But before you can do any of that, you have to have a relationship. The more you guys follow, the more you're going to hear me say this. Hospitality is building relationships. It's being vulnerable and giving what you have. Discipleship is being vulnerable, opening up your life and sharing what you have. And I promise you, if you read through the book of Matthew with that lens, a whole new world is going to be opened up to you. The real question is, are you willing to put in the work? Are you willing to get dirty? Are you willing to get some mud on your pants and brush it off and then go, that's okay. I got something that'll clean it out. Let me show you the trick. I hope someone got something out of tonight. For those of you that popped in and hung around, thank you. I appreciate it. If you could do me a favor, give a like, give a share. I am doing this full time, so if you want to scan the QR code up in the top and help pay for the restream cost and all the different small costs that occur with doing this, it'd be great. If not, that's okay too. I don't believe that the Word of God should cost anything, and I will continue to give it free no matter what. Once again, thank you guys. I appreciate you hanging out for a little bit. I hope with some of you I'll be able to see you in person soon. But until then, stay salty, my friends.
Jedi.